Master and Man by Leo Tolstoy. Chapter 5. Vasily Andreich walked over to the sledge, making it out in the darkness with difficulty, climbed in, and took the reins. "Lead the way," he shouted. Petrushka, kneeling in his low sledge, started his horse. Mukorty had been neighing for a while now, and scenting the mare ahead of him, he tore off after her, and they drove out into the street. They drove through the outskirts again, along the same road, past the same yard with its frozen washing hung out, though there was no seeing it now. Past the same barn, drifted now almost to the roof, snow pouring off it without end. Past the same gloomily rustling, whistling, bending willows, and again they entered that sea of snow raging above and below. The wind was so strong that when it came from the side and the riders caught it like sails, it heeled the sledge over and shoved the horse off course. Petrushka drove ahead at his good mare's easy, rolling trot, calling out cheerfully. Mukorty strained after her. After 10 minutes or so of this, Petrushka turned around and shouted something. Neither Vasily Andreich nor Nikita could hear him over the wind, but they guessed they had come to the turn, and indeed, Petrushka had turned right. The wind, which had been at their side, came head-on again, and through the snow something black showed on the right. It was the little bush at the turn. "Well, God be with you. Thank you, Petrushka." "The storm with darkness hides the sky," shouted Petrushka, and vanished. "There's a poet for you," said Vasily Andreich, and started the horse with a shake of the reins. "Yes, a fine lad, a true peasant," said Nikita. They drove on. Nikita, wrapped up tight, his head sunk into his shoulders so that his short beard lay against his neck, sat in silence, trying not to lose the warmth he had gathered in the hut over tea. Ahead of him he saw the straight lines of the shafts, deceiving him again and again into taking them for a well-worn road, the horse's swaying hindquarters with the knotted tail blown to one side, and farther on the tall shaft bow and the rocking head and neck of the horse, mane streaming in the wind. From time to time a marker stake caught his eye, so he knew they were still on the road for now, and there was nothing for him to do. Vasily Andreich drove, leaving it to the horse to keep to the road. But Mukorty, though he had gotten his wind back in the village, ran unwillingly and seemed to keep edging off the road, so that Vasily Andreich had to correct him more than once. "There's one stake on the right, there's another, there's a third," Vasily Andreich counted, "and there ahead is the forest," he thought, peering at something showing dark in front of him. But what had looked like a forest to him was only a bush. They passed the bush, drove another 40 yards or so, and there was no fourth stake. "The forest has to come any moment now," thought Vasily Andreich, and worked up by the vodka and the tea, he did not stop, but kept flicking the reins, and the good, obedient animal did as it was told, running now at an amble, now at a gentle trot, wherever it was sent, though it knew it was being sent nowhere near where it needed to go. 10 minutes passed, and still no forest. "We've gone and lost the road again," said Vasily Andreich, pulling up the horse. Nikita climbed down from the sledge without a word, and holding his kaftan, which the wind now plastered against him, now flapped open and dragged half off him, went wading through the snow, first to one side, then to the other. 3 times he vanished from sight altogether. At last he came back and took the reins out of Vasily Andreich's hands. "We have to bear right," he said, stern and decided, turning the horse. "Right then. Right it is. Go on," said Vasily Andreich, giving up the reins and pushing his chilled hands into his sleeves. Nikita didn't answer. "Now, friend, put your back into it," he called to the horse. But the horse, for all the shaking of the reins, went only at a walk. The snow was knee-deep in places, and the sledge jerked forward in tugs with every movement of the horse. Nikita took down the whip that hung at the front of the sledge and struck him once. The good horse, not used to the whip, sprang forward at a trot, but dropped at once back into an amble, and then a walk. So they went for 5 minutes or so. It was so dark, and the snow drove so thick from above and below, that at times the shaft bow couldn't be seen. At moments the sledge seemed to be standing still while the field ran backward. Suddenly the horse stopped short, clearly sensing something wrong ahead of him. Nikita sprang out lightly again, dropping the reins, and walked ahead of the horse to see what had stopped him. But the moment he tried to take a step in front of the horse, his feet slid out from under him, and he went rolling down some steep drop. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," he said to himself as he fell, trying to stop, but there was no holding on. He came to a stop only where his feet drove into the thick layer of snow piled at the bottom of the ravine. A snowdrift overhanging the edge of the drop, shaken loose by his fall, came down on him and packed snow inside his collar. "What a thing to do," Nikita said reproachfully, addressing the drift in the ravine and shaking the snow out from under his collar. "Nikita, hey Nikita," shouted Vasily Andreich from above. But Nikita didn't answer. He had no time to. He was shaking himself off, then hunting for the whip he had dropped as he rolled down the slope. When he'd found the whip, he tried to climb straight back up where he had come down, but there was no way up. He kept sliding back, so he had to go along the bottom to look for a way out. 6 or 7 yards from where he had rolled down, he crawled up the slope with difficulty on all fours, and then followed the edge of the ravine back toward where the horse should be. Horse and sledge he couldn't see, but he was walking into the wind, and before he saw them, he heard Vasily Andreich's shouts and Mukorty's neighing, calling him. "Coming, I'm coming, what's all the honking for?" he muttered. Only when he had walked right up to the sledge did he make out the horse, and Vasily Andreich standing beside it, looking enormous. "Where the devil did you disappear to? We have to drive back. We'll go back to Grishkino." The master began scolding him angrily. "I'd be glad to go back, Vasily Andreich, but which way? There's a ravine down there, and once you're in it and you don't come out. I pitched into it so hard I could barely drag myself out." "Well, we can't just stand here, can we? We have to go somewhere," said Vasily Andreich. Nikita said nothing in reply. He sat down on the sledge with his back to the wind, pulled off his boots, and shook out the snow that had packed into them. Then, getting hold of some straw, he carefully plugged the hole in his left boot from the inside. Vasily Andreich kept silent, as if leaving everything to Nikita now. When his boots were back on, Nikita drew his feet into the sledge, pulled on his mittens again, took up the reins, and turned the horse along the ravine, but they hadn't gone 100 paces before the horse balked again. The ravine was in front of him again. Nikita climbed out again and went off again, wading through the snow. He was gone a good while. At last he appeared from the side opposite the one he had started from. "Andreich, you alive?" he shouted. "Here," Vasily Andreich called back. "Well, what?" "Can't make anything out. Too dark. Nothing but ravines. We'll have to drive into the wind again." They set off again. Again Nikita went off, clambering through the snow. Again he sat down. Again he clambered, and at last, out of breath, he stopped by the sledge. "Well, what now?" asked Vasily Andreich. "What now? I'm worn right out, and the horse is giving up. So what do we do?" "Hold on a minute." Nikita went off once more and soon came back. "Stay behind me," he said, stepping in front of the horse. Vasily Andreich no longer gave any orders. He meekly did what Nikita told him. "This way, follow me," Nikita shouted, moving off quickly to the right. He caught Mukorty by the rein and led him downward into a snowdrift. At first the horse balked, then he lunged, hoping to leap clear of the drift, but he hadn't the strength, and sank in up to his collar. "Get out," Nikita shouted at Vasily Andreich, who was still sitting in the sledge. Then, taking hold of one shaft, he began pushing the sledge forward toward the horse. "It's hard going, brother," he said to Mukorty, "but what can we do? Put everything you've got into it. Now, just a little more," he cried. The horse gave a lunge and another, but still couldn't pull free, and settled back down as if thinking something over. "Come, brother, this is no way to carry on," Nikita reasoned with Mukorty. "Now, once more." Again Nikita hauled on the shaft on his side. Vasily Andreich did the same on the other. The horse moved his head, then suddenly lunged. "Now, there, you won't drown, don't you worry," shouted Nikita. One leap, another, a third, and at last the horse was out of the drift, and he stood still, breathing hard and shaking himself off. Nikita wanted to lead him farther, but Vasily Andreich, in his 2 fur coats, was so winded that he couldn't walk, and he dropped into the sledge. "Let me catch my breath," he said, loosening the kerchief he had tied around his coat collar back in the village. "It's all right here. You lie there," said Nikita. "I'll lead him." And with Vasily Andreich in the sledge, he led the horse by the bridle 10 paces or so downhill, then up a little rise, and stopped. The place where Nikita stopped was not down in the hollow where the snow swept off the high ground could pile up and bury them completely. Still, it was partly sheltered from the wind by the edge of the ravine. There were moments when the wind seemed to ease a little, but they never lasted long, and as if to make up for the rest, the storm came sweeping in afterward with tenfold force, tearing and whirling all the more spitefully. One such gust struck just as Vasily Andreich, his breath recovered, climbed out of the sledge, and went over to Nikita to talk over what to do. They both ducked down without meaning to, and waited to speak until the fury of the gust had passed. Mukorty too laid back his ears in displeasure and shook his head. As soon as the gust had eased a little, Nikita pulled off his mittens, tucked them into his sash, blew on his hands, and began untying the rein from the shaft bow. "What are you doing there?" asked Vasily Andreich. "Unharnessing. What else is there to do? I've no strength left," Nikita answered, as if apologizing. "But can't we drive out somewhere?" "No, we can't. We'd only wear the horse to death. Look at him, the dear soul. He's not himself anymore," said Nikita, pointing to the horse, standing there submissive, ready for anything, his steep wet sides heaving hard. "We'll have to spend the night here," he repeated, exactly as though he were settling in for the night at an inn, and he set about undoing the collar strap. The hames of the collar sprang apart. "But won't we freeze?" said Vasily Andreich. "What of it? If freezing's what comes, there's no refusing it,"